رب أعوذ بك من شر ما في هذه الليلة ومن شر ما بعدها. رب أعوذ بك من الكسل وسوء الكبر. رب أعوذ بك من عذاب في النار ومن عذاب في القبر. بسم الله الواحد الأحد الفرد الصمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. والحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه أبدا سرمدا، حمدا يليق بجلال وجهه وبعظيم سلطانه وجزيل نعمائه. والصلاة والسلام على نبيه المجتبى المصطفى محمد الطيب الطاهر الصادق الأمين الرسول المبين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين، وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم اجعلنا منهم. It was mentioned that I'm going to share a few thoughts with you pertaining to how to continue after Ramadan, which I was told that is for tomorrow. But anyways, what I want to share with you is a sort of a continuation from Khutbah al-Jum'ah, and which has to do, yes, also with Ramadan and with after Ramadan, during Ramadan and before Ramadan as well. Because the subject of the tazkiyah of our nufus, the cleansing and the purification of our hearts, of our souls, of ourselves, is a pillar subject of the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Remember, we mentioned the ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that those who on the day of judgment will be safe are only those who come to Allah with a qalb, with a heart that is salim. إِذَا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that a punishment that He subhanahu wa ta'ala assigns to some people in this dunya is that He does not allow their hearts to be cleansed. أولئك الذين لم يرد الله أن يطهر قلوبهم لهم في الدنيا خزي ولهم في الآخرة عذاب عظيم والعياذ بالله. Allah speaks to us, as I mentioned, about some people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishes on account of their choices and their actions in this dunya by leaving them to themselves, and He does not subhanahu wa ta'ala lend them special support in cleansing their hearts. He says to us subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّهَا لَا تَعْمَى الْقُلُوبُ وَلَكِنْ تعمل إنها لا تعمل الأبصار ولكن تعمل القلوب. And that if it's true, verily it is not the external eyes that go blind, but it is the hearts inside of our chests that go blind. وهكذا, the texts are too numerous to enlist from the Quran and from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to emphasize the fact that our qulub are the most prized gift by Allah to us, and that we ought to mend and to rectify our qulub. ألا إن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي القلب. As Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, verily there is within the body of the person a piece of flesh, like as big as a morsel of flesh to be put in your mouth to chew. If it is upright, then all the person is upright. If it is corrupt, then all the person is corrupt. And it is the qalb, it is the heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam for the purpose of purifying our hearts, for the purpose of the tazkiyah of our nufus in our hearts. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. Allah in this ayah and in other ayat and many other ayat in different ways summarizes the mission of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who was sent as a loving mercy and a merciful love to the world, وَإِذَا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that his mission is summarized in, it is about cleansing the hearts, purging the hearts, polishing the hearts, making our hearts worthy of being salim, to finally come in a state of salama, to encounter Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. For we all die. No matter what we do, no matter how sophisticated we think we are, all of us will die. And none of that sophistication will count, except the state with which you and I come to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For Allah said so. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Now, I can go on, but this is an introduction of the importance of the tazkiyah of our nufus, or the tazkiyah of, consequently, of our hearts. Now, what is this tazkiyah? Tazkiyah does what? What is this nafs that is to be muzakkah? ما هي هذه النفس التي ينبغي تزكيتها؟ ما معنى التزكية؟ I think I shall say a few things تأصيلا لهذه المسألة. I'm going to say a few things, the intent behind which is to give us, I think, a deep-rootedness in the Shari'i sense, in the Islamic sense, in the spiritual sense of the reality of tazkiyah of our nufus. You will find that tazkiyah of our nufus has a lot to do with our notion of happiness and our notion of freedom. Do you want to be happy? Do you want to be free? Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to be free. Now, what is happiness? What does happiness mean? I don't think that most of us think of this question. What is happiness? What is this happiness that I am pursuing? What is it? Now listen to this. Upon looking into the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah and human experience also, you can define happiness as this, or ulama have put it in some of these words which I am sometimes simply adjusting in accordance to the circumstance. السعادة قالوا هي تحصيل اللذة والنعيم باستيفاء كل غريزة ما يشتهيه مقتضى طبعها. Did you follow? السعادة هي حصول اللذة والنعيم. Happiness, said they, is the acquisition of pleasure and delight. باستيفاء كل غريزة ما يشتهيه مقتضى طبعها, by the attainment of each, and I'm going to skip the word غريزة مع غرز فينا and use the word نفس. باستيفاء كل نفس ما يشتهيه مقتضى طبعها, by the attainment of each self within that which it desires, it longs for, consistent with its own nature. Are you with me? I repeat, happiness is the attainment of pleasure and delight, okay? But that pleasure and delight is relative. It means it depends on which and who is seeking this pleasure and this delight. And this delight for each human, for each person, as far as we're concerned, the human person, depends on what you are inside. Depends on the حقيقة نفسك. ليس ظاهرها، ليس ما يبدو في الظاهر، ليس ما يقال في الظاهر، وإنما حقيقة الشيء هي كنه، لبه، أصله، كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في حديث صح عنه: إن لكل شيء حقيقة، إن لكل شيء حقيقة، ثم قال: ولم يبلغ حقيقة الإيمان حتى يعلم أن ما أصابه لم يكن ليخطئه وما أخطأه لم يكن ليصيبه. My point here is that Rasulullah speaks of the haqiqah of things, the reality of things, not only the external appearance of things and the external manifestations of things, but the deep essence and reality of things. So, happiness and the nature of happiness depends, the delight that is, and the pleasure I and you seek depends on the nature of your nafs. What that which is inside of you desires in accordance to the way it really is. Clear? As a human person, the way I look, is it what identifies my humanness? هل مظهري الخارجي هو ما يمثل ويعرف حقيقتي الإنسانية? The answer is no. Why? Because if you look at me and you, and then we begin to look deeper and deeper and deeper, then we find that we are all made of, you and I, and everyone is made of the same stuff. Ends up to protons and neutrons and maybe quarks. You know what I mean? Okay. Atoms are about that. You know what protons and neutrons are like. All of us are made of the same stuff. You know, when it comes to modern physics, we're all made of the most basic particles are leptons and quarks. So you all are leptons and quarks. The tree is made of leptons and quarks. The pig is made of leptons and quarks. The rock is made of leptons and quarks. The way they look different, I look different from a pig, hashakum. I look different from a tree, I look different from a stone, though they are made of the same material stuff. It's simply the way the molecules are arranged. The arrangements of the molecules make you and I look this way, and the pig looks that way. And the mosquito looks that way, and the tree looks that way, and the rock looks that way. In other words, what makes me different as a human is not the way I look. For essentially, haqiqatan, I am made of the same stuff the pig is made of, the mosquito is made of, the tree is made of. What makes me different is haqiqatun fi batini, the reality of what I am inside. What nafs am I inside? Now, the answer to that question is also in the Quran and in the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is one way to answer that. Because the happiness I seek depends on the reality I am inside. ما يشتهيه مقتضى طبعي. طبعي أنا، طبعك أنت، طبعك أنت. الطباع تختلف. حقائقنا في باطننا تختلف. وإن تماثلت وتشابهت مظاهرنا، وأصل مظاهرنا أصل واحد. Leptons and quarks. Is that clear? Anybody challenges that? Next point. Subhanallah. مقتضى طبع النفس. What is حقيقة النفس? Our ulama conclude from the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah, which I shall mention some texts, that there are different nufus, different realities of the nufus. There is nafsun bahimiyya. There is nafsun kalbiyya or sabu'iyya. And there is nafsun shaytaniyya. And there is, luckily, nafsun malaikiyya. These are haqa'iq of nufus. Each one of these nufus, I shall say it in English, nafsun bahimiyya, cattle-like nafs. What's an example of cattle? Pig, cows, camels, goats, lambs, sheep, llamas, هذه الأنعام. نفس بهيمية. أنعام البهيمة also بقر حمار هكذا. النفس السبوية meaning كلبية meaning predatory. السبوع is a predator. النفس whose nature is predatory, whose حقيقة, the underlying حقيقة is سبوعية بمعنى كلبية بمعنى predatory. And there is نفس works شيطانية, devil-like نفس. النفس that is luckily alhamdulillah that exists still, angel-like نفس. These are the حقائق, the underlying حقائق of the إنسان. About النفس البهيمية كالأنعام, Allah mentions that in the Quran, doesn't he? أولئك كالأنعام بل هم أضل. أولئك هم الغافلون. Says Allah Azza wa Jalla, describing some human beings, he says, they are like an'am, like cattle. Nay, even worse, Allah says. Allah says in the Quran also, والذين كفروا يتمتعون ويأكلون كما تأكل الأنعام والنار مثوى لهم. Allah says there are some human beings, the unbelievers, who enjoy and rejoice and enjoy themselves and eat like cattle do. And so, a cattle-like nafs, your haqiqah and my haqiqah, if it is a cattle-like nafs, it means what? What makes a cattle happy? Now we come back to happiness. In accordance to its nature, there are specialists about animal behavior. What makes a cow happy, satisfied? Eating, right? It's true. Just give them food, and choices of food, and you can even give them so much food and fool them by food and food until they get mad. You know what I mean? Because they want to eat and eat, so you can give them animal protein. You process them and you disguise them, and it looks like the food they like. So they eat it until they get mad. You know what I mean? Mad cow disease. And they die out of eating. They eat, they drink. What else do cows do? Sheep and camels and pigs, and what do? They eat and drink and mate, copulate. They mate, they sleep, and they play. This is the characteristic of an animal. Our ulama say from the Quran, and this is what we call the Islamic psychology of the human self. Now, in other words, what it is telling us that some of our haqa'iq, some of us are cattle-like nufus. What does it mean? How do I know? And we're talking about after Ramadan, how we rectify ourselves, how we begin the process of purification, is to look at myself and see, on average, most of the time, what is my pursuit in my life? If I'm a person whose pursuit in life is mostly about eating and drinking and having sex, mating, the word to say mating, copulating, but having sex and drinking and playing, if that's what I do, and that's what my routine, average thoughts are about, then my haqiqah inside of me, I am as happy as a cow. I'm happy, yes, but as happy as a cow, as a pig. Because that's my haqiqah inside. If this is my pursuit, nafsun bahimiyya, some of us go beyond that. There are nafs, as I said, predatory. What is a characteristic of a predator? How's a predator happy and pleased? Great. Besides eating and drinking and mating and so on, what does a predator do? What is a characteristic of a predator? A hyena. Oh, I'm going to say it quiet, it sounds nice. Hyena, wild dog. What's their characteristic? What makes them happy? Hunting, killing, taking territory, usurping, expressing madness and anger, violence. These are characteristics of a predator. And when you or I, as human beings, have and express instincts and predatory traits and characteristics, and we feel great after that, we do that at home. Anger, misplaced anger, is a predatory trait. Taking something from others unjustly is predatory trait. Usurping territory is a predatory trait. Killing the competition, sometimes you go to school, those who study business and so on, in schools, part of what they teach is kill the competition and how to kill the competition. Of course, not physically killing the competition, but killing the competition is a predatory trait. It's not about affinity, it's not about symbiosis and symbiotic relationships. It's about killing the competition, exterminating the competition. The winner takes all. These are predatory traits. And if I am like that, and you can talk about many more in war, in times of disagreement, in times of conflicts, how some of us behave like predators. And we find, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, delight and pleasure in doing that. That's predatoriness, like a wolf. And to the extent I feel satisfied with that, to the extent I have of predatory, what? Traits and characteristics. نفس كلبية والعياذ بالله. صح عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال: سيخرج في آخر الزمان رجال يختالون الدنيا بالدين. يختالون أي يطلبون، يطلبون الدنيا بالدين. يلبسون للناس جلود الضأن من اللين، وألسنتهم أحلى من العسل، وقلوبهم قلوب الذئاب. الحديث. Says Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there shall come a time when there would be people, that is in the Muslim environment, in the Muslim community as well, who shall exchange their deen for dunya, who shall purchase, who shall seek dunya at the expense of deen, who shall seek the material goods of this world, the resources of this world at the expense of their deen, power and wealth, and so on, at all levels, at your level, at the political level, at the military level, not only to think of you first, each one thinks of myself. يختلون الدنيا بالدين. يلبسون للناس جلود الضأن من اللين. They shall wear for people in appearance the garb of lambs out of tenderness, disguised tenderness, while their hearts, he says, are hearts of wolves. What is a wolf? A predator. Hearts of wolves. قلة الرحمة والعياذ بالله. Lack of mercy, lack of merciful love, lack of loving mercy, lack of compassion. And again, when I say these things, please don't think about that first at the level of nations and the level of governments and leaders. Think about it at your own level, your own nafs and mind. Because there are predatory instincts at home. In your family, we behave sometimes like predators. In our relationship with spouses, wife with her husband, or husband with wife, with children, with neighbors, in times of conflict, in disagreement, in challenges at work, as bosses or leaders of other employees. Predatory instincts when they have it in that. And we find satisfaction in that, and we promote for that, and we get promoted for that. Wow, God. SubhanAllah. Makes them happy. Yes? Is the seal happy? Yes, very happy. As happy as a hyena. Because sometimes, no, they're not happy. No, they are happy. Some of us are happy. But what quality of happiness? In view of my nature, I could be as happy as a dog, as a wild dog, not as happy as a mu'min, not as happy as an Adamic creature, not as happy as an angel. And there are worse than that inside of you, and we could be lurking a shaitan. Worse than that. What does it mean to have a nafs that is shaitan-like? Qalb that is shaitan-like. Again, when I espouse or have in me traits and akhlaq and characteristics that are reminiscent of a shaitan. What makes a shaitan happy? Then I would know. First of all, I answer this question. What makes a shaitan happy, as Allah teaches us in the Quran and in the Sunnah of Rasulullah, etc.? What makes shaitan happy? Misguided people. What else? Arrogance, kibr, isn't it? Kibr, anger. What else? Delusion, horror. Right? The love to be the Lord, and to be the master. Sowing seeds of animosity and hatred. Especially arrogance, isn't it? And therefore horror, delusion, and therefore riya, ostentation. And all those characteristics, that means what? This is very scary to me. That means when you or I, inside of us, have some of those characteristics of what? Kibr, arrogance, delusion, horror, riya, ostentation, love for power, love to be leader at the expense of so many other things, then I have traits of shaitan. And I have traits inside of me of a shaitan. What do you have with that? Allah says in the Quran, do you remember an ayah that mentions shayateen in the Quran? Of human beings? وكذلك جعلنا لكل نبي عدوا شياطين الإنس والجن يوحي بعضهم إلى بعض زخرف القول غرورا. Allah speaks of indeed in the Quran that some human beings are like devils, shayateen. What is to be a devil like me? That's what it means. I have to look at what I am inside, what I feel inside, and what I express accordingly outside to know what I am. Rasulullah says also in one hadith related by Imam Muslim on the authority of Hudayfa ibn Yaman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he, as you know, some of you, when Sayyidina Hudayfa used to ask Rasulullah about Ash-Shari, right? Famous hadith, and then he answered him questions. And in one of those questions he answered him, Ya Rasulullah, we were in Shar and Allah gave us this khayr. Is after this khayr Shar? And then he mentioned to him, yes, and why? And he says, is after that Shar khayr? And he says, yes. وَفِيهِ دَخَلٍ. Yes. There is khayr after that, and فِيهِ دَخَلٍ. In other words, there will be smoke-like condition. It's ambiguous, it's cloudy, it's not as clear. قال وما دخلوا يا رسول الله؟ قال قوم يستنون بغير سنتي. قوم منا يستنون بغير سنتي. People amongst us, in other words, who shall live their life, that conduct themselves and make choices of styles of life, in other words, that are not in accordance to my way. And he says, وَسَيَخْرُجُ فِيهِمْ أَقْوَامٌ قُلُوبُهُمْ قُلُوبُ الشَّيَاطِينِ فِي جُثْمَانِ إِنسٍ. End of quote, problems here. And there shall come out from amongst them, there shall surge from amongst them, people, man, whose hearts are hearts of devils, of shayateen, in the body of humans. See how the body versus the reality you mentioned? The body of the human, but the haqiqah of a shaitan. Al-hadith. This is the haqiqah of some of us. And we are very happy. People are very happy. Some people are very happy when they, through expressing devil-like traits, obtain what they want. And that's their nature, wants that. ما يقتضيه ربه ما يشتهيه مقتضى طبعه. Yes, he is happy or she is happy, but as happy as a shaitan. And then there is another qalb or another nafs, whose characteristics are the characteristics and traits of angels. النفس الملائكية. نفس angel-like nafs. And what's an angel-like nafs? Is a person who inside has longing and desire for angelic traits. What makes angels happy and satisfied? Dhikrullah. As Rasulullah teaches us, as the Quran teaches us, and malaika are doman, always in dhikrillah. Always, to the extent that space-time is so filled with malaika in sujood and in tasbih. أَطَّتِ السَّمَاءُ وَأَطُّ حَقَّ لَهَا أَنْ تَأُطْ. You know the hadith, the famous hadith? That's like space-time is squeaking. It's so, in other words, congested, so that it squeaks. This is ibara, majaziyah. It's why squeaky? Because there is not a space like a square centimeter or square inch in which there is not an angel in prostration and in tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Always. فإن استكبروا فالذين عند ربك لا يستكبرون عن عبادته ويسبحونه etc. وله يسجدون. Angel-like characteristics, a lot of salah, a lot of dhikr, a lot of dua. علم بالله, معرفة بالله. Characteristics of the angels is they have knowledge of the divine. They have knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. They have hubb for Allah Azza wa Jal. They have fear from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They love that ilm that leads them, that Allah gives them, to enable them to know more about Allah and worship even in a deeper sense Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Angel-like characteristics, kindness, benevolence, generosity, compassion, merciful love, loving mercy. All of these are characteristics of angel-like. Al-adl, al-ihsan, al-rifq, al-mahabba لله عز وجل ولعباد الله والرحمة والرأفة. All of these are characteristics of angels. So if you inside of you, if a human being inside of him or her, this is what they long for, this is when they have, it makes them happy. Are you happy when you come to Salah? Am I happy when I come to Salah, or am I bored when I come to Salah? That can tell you a lot of what nafs I have. Am I happy when I am alone in an empty room in dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal and in dua? Or am I in a hurry to leave? I can't stand to be alone. I have to go out and be with people. من علامة الإفلاس الاستئناس بالناس كما قال. Of the signs of spiritual bankruptcy is to find solace in numbers of people. You can't be alone in an empty room. I'm afraid. Actually, why am I afraid to be alone in an empty room? When we are alone in an empty room, we are with whom? Besides Allah Azza wa Jal. We are with whom? We are with me, with my nafs. You know, the rootedness, the psychological root, I think, the spiritual root of why we are afraid or anxious when we're alone, because we are with the beast inside of us. And you're afraid of a beast. Isn't it true? Because inside of us, we're not truly insan. The haqiqah. We are the wahsh. And what do they call that? Painful solitude, alone. You're alone, it feels painful and you can't stand it. What is it called? What is it called? Wahsha, isn't it? Wahsha is from what root word? Wahsh. What is wahsh in Arabic? The beast, the predator. When you're alone, when I'm alone, and I'm anxious and I'm afraid, it's because I'm with the predator, the beast inside of me. I can't stand to be alone. If Allah were in my qalb, إذا كان قلبي مملوءا توحيدا بالمعنى الذي ذكرنا سابقا, if my qalb is filled with Allah through His tawheed subhanahu wa ta'ala, I can never be anxious or depressed or afraid when I'm alone. I love to be alone. As a matter of fact, of the signs of true tawbah to Allah Azza wa Jal, there are different levels of tawbah, my dear brothers and sisters. Of the sign of true repentance to Allah, of true tawbah to Allah, is to love to be alone with Allah Azza wa Jal, in dua, in dhikr, crying and shedding hot tears of remorse and pain, what I have missed in my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And nafs that is wahshi versus nafs, the nafs that is insi. And we were the Prophet, the Prophet were the insan. When we were the insan, we were in Jannah, our origin. We were all in Adam. And Adam was where? Originally, where were we? In Jannah, weren't we? You and I were in the genome of our father Adam, and we were all, in that sense, in Jannah with Allah Azza wa Jal. And we were in uns with Allah in Jannah. And uns makes you insan. Uns makes you insan. إذا فقدت الأنس بالله وفي الله فقدت إنسانيتك وتحولت إلى وحش والعياذ بالله فوجدت الوحشة. We are insan. True Adamic nature is to find inside of me solace and peace in Allah Azza wa Jal. When I lose that, I have become wahsh. And our journey in this dunya, so we had to leave Jannah because we disobeyed Allah Azza wa Jal. And we lost our insaniya, our true Adamic nature. We lost it. And then we were kicked out, we were pushed away from Jannah. But Allah is giving us another chance always to return back home. Our original home is Jannah. And He gives us another chance to come back home. You can come back home if you want to come back home. But this is what you need to do. Cleanse your qalb. Don't live as a predator. Don't live as a cattle. Don't live as a shaitan. Cleanse your heart and strive to live as an angel-like creature to come back home, and I promise you will never leave again. Isn't it? Tazkiyatun nafs, therefore, is about what? From what we said. What do you think it would be? أصلوها معي.
Knowing the nafs that's
أحسنت. أحسنت. جزاك الله خيرا. Indeed, tazkiyatun nafs then becomes impeding, removing, controlling the other levels of the nafs, the low levels of the nafs, the bahimi, the predatory and the shaitani, and promoting and cultivating the malaiki traits and characteristics that Allah wills for us. So this is tazkiyatun nafs. Tazkiyatun nafs, my nafs to be مزكاة. التزكية بمعنى ماذا؟ The meaning of تزكية النمو، الرفعة، العلو، الظهور. Is that I will bring to surface and to expression the deep, beautiful potential inside of me, the angel-like, and suppress and control the low traits inside of me. And to do that, because we have to stop, it's now going to be 45 minutes soon now, so I have 45 minutes in about 2-3 minutes. How do I do that? First of all, my dear brothers and sisters, I should know these things. It begins by knowledge, a regular diet of knowledge. Not occasional, regular knowledge and diet. In other words, there is junk knowledge. Like there is junk food, there is junk knowledge. There is knowledge which does not help me in promoting my heart relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number two, through that knowledge, I must repent to Allah. I must consistently renew my tawbah daily. Nay, it should become upon point very regularly, every minute. Rasulullah is reported, he's sitting in a majlis, and he who he was, وكان في كل مجلس يستغفر أكثر من 70 مرة في وقت 100 مرة. Rasulullah teaches us that when he's in a majlis, the companions hear him say, Astaghfirullah al-Azim wa atubu ilayh. More than 70 times, some said more than 100 times, regularly, to renew my tawbah. Tawbah means to return. Tawbah means to return to Allah Azza wa Jalla. And that return, of course, is not physical. I'm not running physically away from Allah. Allah Azza wa Jalla is متعال عن الزمان والمكان. Allah is exalted from space and time. Running away from Allah is inside of me, my drives, my potential, my likes, my dislikes, my orientations, my inclinations are not what He loves. And we have a choice about that. So I must reorient through tawbah. I must come back from running away from Allah Azza wa Jal inside of me. Thirdly, I must make sure to begin with that I must accuse my nafs, not be a defendant of my nafs. Most of us are defendants of our nafs, whether we are ulama or du'at or regular people, or we are most of the time, we are what? Attorneys for our own selves. Oh, I'm not like that, I'm not like that, I. We need to begin by accusing my nafs, being a prosecutor of my nafs, not an attorney for my nafs. This is where it begins. And especially some of us who learn a few words here and there, and we have a few degrees here and there, many of us, knowledge, some sort of knowledge makes us what? Arrogant, mutakabbir, deluded, maghrur. Well, maghrur is the person who assesses himself or herself more than what they really are. I must accuse my nafs. I must accuse my nafs. I must strive to learn that. That attitude is extremely necessary and important. In the nafsa, لَأَمْضِمَارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي. And the ahadith about that are many. Says Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, أَفْضَلُ الْجِهَادِ مَنْ جَاهَدَ نَفْسَهُ فِي ذَاتِ اللَّهِ. In the authentic hadith, the best of jihad, the best of struggle is the person who struggles against his or her own nafs in Allah. I must begin with that. Second or fourth, briefly said, which I agree with that, one of your brothers and sisters, كثرة ذكر الله تعالى. I repeat, كثرة ذكر, not ذكر الله تعالى. What did I say? كثرة ذكر الله تعالى. Prolific, continuous, frequent dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not occasional, because occasionally Allah teaches us that even the hypocrite, the munafiq, does that occasionally. Isn't it? What does Allah say in the Quran? وَإِذَا قَامُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَامُوا كُسَالَى يُرَاءُونَ النَّاسَ وَلَا يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Allah Akbar. And whenever Allah enjoins upon us to be in His dhikr, there is the adjective كثيرا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا الله ذكرا كثيرا. And so on. I said that al-munafiqun also sometimes are in dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, because Allah describes them in the Quran, for example, in Surah Al-Nisa, when He says, when they come to Salah, one trait of a munafiq is when he or she comes to Salah, they become lazy and bored. Ya Latif. إذا قاموا إلى الصلاة قاموا كسالى يراءون الناس. They like to show off. They like to be seen doing those things. And ولا يذكرون الله إلا قليلا. They do remember Allah only occasionally. But المؤمن يذكر الله كثيرا. كثرة ذكر الله عز وجل حتى يصل معنى وأثر ذلك الذكر إلى سويداء قلبي. Because the intent is that the dhikr becomes embedded in the deepest recesses of my heart. So that at the moment of dying, it is in there even if I cannot utter it. And I die, inshallah, in sincere tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jal. But if I don't do that, I'm at risk. ألا إن لكل شيء سقالة وإن سقالة القلوب ذكر الله تعالى كما صح عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم when he said, well, means verily everything has a means by which to be cleansed, and the cleansing agent of the hearts is the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fifthly, with dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, watch my tongue. Speak less. Please, may Allah help us all. Speak less. And don't say, well. If I don't speak, then things won't go. That's exactly the start of our disease. Once we answer that way, that's it, I am sick in my qalb. Because you will know, when we practice that, you will have the answer to that question. But I have to first begin by accusing my nafs. And my speech must be very infrequent, except in dhikr Allah Azza wa Jal. صح عنه صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إياكم وكثرة الكلام من غير ذكر الله فإن كثرة الكلام من غير ذكر الله قسوة للقلب وأبعد الناس من الله تعالى القلب القاسي. End of quote. He said, beware from much speech without dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal, for much speech without dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal hardens the heart. And the person most distant from Allah Azza wa Jal is a person with a hard heart. Talking a lot hardens the heart. The dhikr a lot softens the heart. You want to talk? Be in dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal. You want to talk? Read Quran. Until we learn, by the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal, our qulub begin to cleanse little by little until our speech will be, on average, proper. And that we speak, inshallah ta'ala, on average, that which pleases Allah Azza wa Jal. Because the intent is not to speak. The intent is to rectify the disease in my qalb that makes me speak in ways that are detrimental to me in this dunya and in akhirah. Qillat al-kalam, my dear brothers and sisters, and many other things. I wanted simply to give sort of a brief introduction or a summary introduction to what it means to be in Tazkiyat al-Nafs. And of course, fasting in the month of Ramadan is, by the grace of Allah Azza wa Jalla, one of the many virtues, of the many gifts rather, that Allah Azza wa Jalla granted us to help us cleanse ourselves. And as many of you know, the blessings of the month of Ramadan, in which time changes, isn't it? In which the qulub change without any effort on our parts. Allah's rahmah. And we'll talk about that maybe a little bit tomorrow. But a sawm, fasting and refraining from food by choice, is a means to cleanse our hearts. With the condition, of course, that when we eat, we don't eat with vengeance. When we break our fast, we should not break our fast. Sometimes people fast, but then the way we eat will completely nullify and renders vain our fasting. We should fast with the purpose of cleansing ourselves, and we should do that in the way Rasulullah taught us, and our early generation of the Sahaba and of the ulama have said, rahimahullah ta'ala. This is, my dear sisters and brothers, in brief, what perhaps we could say during this affordable time. And then if you have now, as I was told, questions, we'll see if I can answer. Which elements? Oh, I see. Of what I mentioned, there are other things. Of what I mentioned, essential things. A regular diet of ilm. Regular diet of ilm. I said regular and diet. You know what that means. Not just ilm, regularly, and a diet. Regular diet of ilm. Ilm is very important because it empowers. By the grace of Allah and by the catalyst from Allah Azza wa Jalla, and the catalyst is His tawfiq, is the nisma min Allah Azza wa Jalla fi qalb al-mu'min. When we work, when we have a chemical reaction, we have all the components there, but it won't work if you don't have the catalyst. Or it's going to take 500 years, or 1,000 years, or maybe 10,000 years, or maybe millions of years for that chemical reaction to take place. But if you put a catalyst, it happens in minutes. The catalyst here is tawfiq, the nasma, the breath from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's nur, as the hadith teaches. إِنَّ لِرَبِّكُمْ فِي أَيَّامِ دَارِكُمْ نَفَحَاتٍ فَتَعَرَّضُوا لِنَفَحَاتِ رَبِّكُمْ. And that Allah Azza wa Jalla has in the days of your time, of your life, never had breaths, that is of His mercy. Expose your hearts to those breaths, to that nesma, to that breeze from Allah Azza wa Jalla. For if you're touched by one of them, you'd be happy for the rest of your existence. It will change you. So I said, talab al-ilm leads me with that catalyst from Allah Azza wa Jalla to be in tawbah. Right? Moment. If I don't know what I'm missing. So I continue to do what I'm doing. The moment, the regular diet of moment, by the grace of Allah and through the catalyst of the rahmah of Allah Azza wa Jalla, generates inside of me fear, remorse, longing. And that's what tawbah is. Tawbah is not to say tuba with my tongue. Tawbah is in my qalb I return. I feel pain for what has passed and for what I have missed. And I long for a better future. So knowledge empowers the regular diet of tawbah from Allah. كثرة ذكر الله تعالى, as I said, قلة الكلام, as I said, less use of our tongues, inshallah. And we can say more, that very essential, of which قلة الاختلاط بالأنام, less mingling with people. And المخالطة, you learn something well, and then you hang out with the wrong crowd, and you're done. You could learn something wonderful, your heart is affected, and then you go hang out with the wrong crowd, and it's all gone. الطبع سراق, as it is said. الطبع سراق. Our nature is like steal from one another, just by the way I'm around you, without you saying anything, but just observing you. You know, that exists in secular psychology, changing behavior simply by suggestion. You don't say a thing. That's why there are commercials. Well, the commercials don't force you to do anything. You have pictures, you have sounds, you read them, you make a choice, you look at them, and they affect many of us. And we make choices we would not have otherwise made had we not been exposed to that which we chose to be exposed to. قلة الاختلاط بالأنام nowadays, in our times, has a more general meaning than it used to be a century ago or 14 centuries ago. The concept of ikhtilat. Ikhtilat now includes television, includes what else? Internet. So you carry everything with you. You carry everything with you in your own privacy. No one can see you, and you can have the world there. A world of fujur, a world of fusuq, a world of excesses that you make a choice to have. And by having it and looking at it, most likely than not, and these are statistics, you will be affected. Whether you are young or old. And they know that. We don't force anything on you. Of course you don't. You're right. Shaitan will also say that on the day of judgment. They have forced nothing on you, isn't it? وقال الشيطان إن الله وعدكم وعد الحق ووعدتكم فأخلفتكم وما كان لي عليكم من سلطان إلا أن دعوتكم فاستجبتم لي فلا تلوموني ولوموا أنفسكم ما أنا بمصرخكم وما أنتم بمصرخي إني كفرت بما أشركتموني من قبل. Shaitan said that, look, don't blame me. I had no power over you. I only suggested to you. And you followed me. So he said, the power of suggestion, mukhalafa, can demolish and destroy the work built for a long time. At home, family life, at work, in a Muslim, we have more challenges nowadays to face us because we have also more choices. We have, some of us call it more freedom. And therefore, it entails more responsibility, my dear brothers and sisters. And mukhalafa is very, very essential to be controlled in this case as well, inshallah ta'ala. Allah ta'ala.
وهذا الصلاة بالتزكية الصلاة وحدها هي التزكية هي صلة الله جل وعلا الله عالم بتزكية النفس وفيها تقوى في دين الله.
نفس الله تعالى مسجد الفاضل all of it is the same. الصلاة, الصوم, الزكاة, الحج. If I had time, I'd tell you why in details. ذكر الله سبحانه وتعالى, الدعاء, مراقبة الأحوال القلوب, all of that. Forgiving, pardoning, التصوف, all of that Allah made to help our nufus to be cleansed. الصلاة من أدوات تزكية النفس أيضا.
نعم. يعني هي أساس
هي أساسها تقصد
أساس
الصلاة العماد الدين. نعم. SubhanAllah, Salah is one of those most essential, most blessing means of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His rahmah gave us as a gift to cleanse our nufus and to elevate us and help us rise. And that concept is in the fact also in this ishari way that Salah is the only hukm, isn't it, that was given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not in this world, but in the Malakut realm, isn't it? Only Salah was made mandatory upon us through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not from this earth, not from earth, but when he was in the journey of Mi'raj. لما عرج به not in Islam, in Mi'raj. لما عرج به صلى الله عليه وسلم إلى جوار ربه إلى قرب ربه سبحانه وتعالى. There Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم rose. Allah gave him that which no one before him or after him would be given, of nearness to Allah Azza wa Jal. And we cannot even begin to imagine the likes of us, what that means to the qalb and to the ruh of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of grandest of all gifts. So in that realm, before he comes back to us, Allah gives him something to bring to us. That's what happened. And that is Salah. It is as though Allah is saying, look, I took my abd to me as a takreem to him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, ennoblement, dignity and ennoblement to him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because he was my full abd. Remember Surah Al-Isra, تفتدئ بماذا؟ سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده. يعني Allah Azza wa Jalla is though telling us the gift that he gave to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam by bringing him to him in that way is on account of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam being what? A true abd. True abd. This is the gift to the true abd. That means when you and I, we strive to be abd, Allah will give us gifts. Spiritual gifts that are very special. So, in the Mi'raj, he gives Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam salah to bring to us as though he's telling us, your Mi'raj to me, your uruj to me is your salah. لذلك قالوا الصلاة معراج المؤمن. That's why they said salah is the means of spiritual transport on the believer. Salah is Salah Akbar. Yes. Salah, Salah, Salah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in his last moments, what was he saying? What was he advising? What was the statements of his last will? As-salat, as-salat, as-salat. That's why we shall come to Salah, my dear brothers and sisters, and we strive to come to Salah, never in a hurry. When you enter Salah, make sure to the best of our ability that inside of you everything stops. There is nothing as important, let alone more important, than your Salah when you are in Salah. And therefore you should not be in a hurry to leave, because that's what, who does that? Munafiq, as you heard earlier. We should not be in a hurry to leave. After Salah, as Rasulullah teaches, stay in dhikr of Allah. Don't be in a hurry to do anything else, even something legitimate. When you are in Salah, the moment of Salah, the moment of dhikr, that's like the world stops. That's the way you should feel. Do not do anything like that or better than that. Rasulullah taught us that if you do, after your Salah, you stay in dhikr and do this and that, as many of you know, and he teaches that few are those who do that. And then he asked him at the end, Ya Rasulullah, you mentioned the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal after Salah, and you mentioned so many virtues of that. And you mentioned there are only few who do that. In other words, not too many are consistent with that regularly. They said, why? He said, because once you finish your salah, shaitan comes again and reminds you of your needs. Oh, I have to do this. This is important. I have to shop. I have to give a lecture. I have to talk. I have to. No. That's all shaitan. Stay in the lectures for what? Why would I lecture you? If lecture is not about making you and me be in salah and in dhikr and change my qalb, what's lecture for? So I should interrupt a person whose qalb is in with Allah Azza wa Jalla, listen to me? No. Sometimes that's, we don't know, but it's a trick of a nafs. It's a trap of shaitan and of the nafs. داوم على ذكر الله. إذا كنت في ذكر الله عز وجل ووجدت حلاوة ذلك فلا تنتقل إلى غير ذلك. He said because shaitan comes and reminds the person of يذكره حاجته. And he didn't say legitimate حاجة, convenience, something legitimate even. And that's why people don't do that, because they prioritize this. Oh, this is more important than that. So I have to do that. So I tell you and myself, don't do that. Sit in the way of Allah. The A'imma should set an example for that. And they should teach patiently through their own practice the love for the Allah Azza wa Jalla, even after Salah and immediately after Salah as well, inshallah ta'ala. Wallahu ta'ala. Yes, please.
Is there a difference between the spirits of shaitan and earlier you were speaking of shaitan? Is there a difference between the two? And if so, is it necessary for us to distinguish between the two?
The answer to that question from some of the ulama have said, it's a very important and very meticulous question, of course. How do I distinguish within me between wasawis al-shaytan, they call them, and hawajis al-nafs? Sometimes they use the same word of waswas, لكن technically يقولون waswas al-shaytan وهاجس النفس. How do we distinguish between the two? This requires masters not of ilm only, but masters of qulub and ilm. And one of them has answered, and Junayd rahimahullah ta'ala has answered this question because this is matter of qulub. That Allah gives them ينور قلوبهم بذلك والله سبحانه يعلمهم بمثل هذه التفاصيل إكراما لهم. Those who have indeed experienced so much in the realm of ilm and in the realm of the qulub, and they were walking saints and walking lights, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, he said, rahimahullah ta'ala, the difference between that is the waswas of shaitan comes to you spontaneously without anything that might have externally caused it. Something that is not related to your condition or to the moment. And it comes from nowhere. Number one. And then if you're aware of it and you try to ignore it and fight it, etc., and not apply it, well, it changes to something else, different than it. And then if you continue, it changes to something else, because shaitan is interested simply in making you and me fall into sin, any sin. If he's unable to trap you or me for this one, he tries another one. That's the waswas. The habits of the nafs, they say, is when you resist it, it comes back, the same one, again and again and again, and it persists, the same one. And usually it comes on the occasion of we having done something, or experienced something, or be exposed to something that somehow left a mark inside. And then it is persistent, the same one. That's nafsan. Because the nafs wants to get what it wants. Shaitan wants to get anything that makes you fall. Nafs wants something specific. I want this. So sometimes this is helpful for those who seek this path of iman to Allah, towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes we discover that most of it is our nufus and shaitan has nothing to do with it. An example of that, or I leave it to tomorrow, like Ramadan. How Ramadan helps us actually also answer such questions. Inshallah. Does it help? Keep that in mind. It helped me.
جزاك الله خير.
خير جزاكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
I'll remind you that tomorrow we have a meeting with the Sheikh, inshallah, at the same time.